Hey guys, it's Nicole, and as you can see, I am back in my dorm room. I talked quite a bit about the things that I've been up to. You guys know that I had an internship the previous semester, and I am about to finish one this winter break. But I don't think I've shared too much about how I've acquired these internships in the first place. For any job application, I think the integral part would be the resume. And while I was able to get these internships, I think there's a lot of room for improvement when it comes to resume writing for me. And I do want to take a moment to talk about the resources that NUS provides. So the Center for Future Ready Graduates, CFG for short, they provide resources that help students, myself included, with resume writing. They have this software called VMock, which I used in the CFG 1002 module, which was very helpful, but I do want to find ways that I can kind of stand out from other applicants, and I'm sure you guys would want that for yourselves as well. So that's why I booked a session with a CFG career advisor in NUS. I just wanted to get some feedback on things that I could improve, and also to ask some questions, which I hope will be really helpful as well for anyone who is looking to apply for internships and jobs in the future. But before I start the session with the career advisor, I do want to talk about this exciting event that NUS has. If you're a hustler or you just like staying prepared for the future, NUS Career Fest 2022, Your Career Unlocked, is coming up. It's NUS' largest career fair, and the event will be in hybrid form. So there'll be 2 days of physical fair and 2 days of virtual fair. Leading up to the Career Fest, there'll be preparatory workshops to enhance every step of your job search, such as how to stand out at interviews using the art of storytelling and on personal branding. And there will also be talks on emerging career paths like sustainability. I'll talk a little more about the fair later on. I think it is about time for my career session. It will be online. Her name is Joline, and it's her first time looking at my resume, so this will be a very raw and real reaction from a professional career advisor, and you will get to see how she thinks about my resume. Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
I'm Joline. I am a career advisor with the FASS team. Okay, wow. Okay, first off, I see that it's 2 pages long. Generally, we try to stick to a page, especially for fresh graduates. But of course, unless there are really relevant internship experiences that is well-fitting for the job description, then you can, go more than a page, just as long as it's within 2 pages. First off, I guess we start from the beginning. We do recommend that students have a LinkedIn account. That's where you can brand yourself. It's a place where you can say more about yourself than what your resume might allow, right, space-wise. Also, I noted that you don't have a photograph. So there are reasons for it, because there are organizations that are now turning to using artificial intelligence to scan resumes. And so sometimes images and colors can cause the machine to glitch up, and instead of being helpful, your resume gets set aside and doesn't get picked up. So that's another case for having a LinkedIn account. If they find that your resume is interesting and they want to have a look at how you look like, that's where they can go to for additional information. So I always tell students that the first exercise in creating a personal brand is go Google yourself, and if you find that you like what you read about yourself and you agree with what you read, and it paints a nice picture of who you are, then that's probably good branding for yourself. But if you do a check on yourself and you find that I don't like what I'm seeing, what I see doesn't really reflect what I think about myself or what I want someone else to think about me, then that's probably a good time to reassess your personal branding, because nowadays everybody turns to technology to scan others. So it's a good idea to make sure that what's available on social media platforms as well as other media is accurate and agreeable with you. We don't have to put a home address. A contact number is fine, as well as an email that sounds professional enough. Okay, so education. I see that you have neatly categorized it already. That's very good. Okay, so I see that you have NUS, no spelling errors. That's important. Never underestimate keeping your resume free from spelling errors, because this is an important document. And for recruiters looking at an important document, okay, so you put the most recent thing on top. You may want to distinguish your major. So it's at least it's consistent. Major in communications and new media, minor in this. So there is a case for putting CAP scores. Is there a particular reason for not including it here?
Does it matter if you put your CAP score as a first-year student or like a final year student? Because as a first-year student, your CAP may still be very volatile, and you can get a 5.0, but it's really 5.0 because you managed to SU the other unfavorable grades. So how accurate or how would your CAP score look to employers depending on your year?
They would know that it's a situational thing, it's for that season. So it's okay to put it in, whether in year 1 or in year 4. There are organizations that say, CAP score is not so important. We are more interested in the transferable skills you have and technical skills you have, and it's not a reflection of your performance in the workplace. So some places do say that. On the other hand, the case for it is because it sometimes is a quick way for recruiters to have a look at capability, the ability to understand, to comprehend. And so putting that bit of information there, scan, is a quick enabler for them to make comparisons. Let's say all other things being equal, could that be an indicator? Certain jobs or certain industries may require them to pick students who have a certain CAP score. Putting it there will at least take out that ambiguity for them. They've got so many resumes to look through. So if that's something that you can cancel out as an inconvenience for them, then that's another reason why it's a possibility to consider putting in. Okay, so for this bit of information here, usually we may sacrifice it for information that may be more, I wouldn't say more, okay, I say that in relatively, because when you apply for a job, you put in relevant stints, right? That showcases your skills for the job description they apply for. So you want to prioritize the information and make sure that they can see everything in one page, right? The important stuff. But let's say while you were in Temasek Poly, you achieved something significant. Maybe you were someone who received an award, or maybe you had some relevant leadership roles, or maybe relevant research roles, whichever that is relevant for the job, then you would be able to put it here. Otherwise, you might want to consider removing it in favor of other things that can talk about your skill set. So of course, for some people who may not have a laundry list of things, putting this in can be beneficial for them. If let's say they did well, then you can put it in. Okay, so that's something you will consider when you look at the rest of your resume. Okay, so this is the part where I would need to discuss. We want to make sure that students talk about their skills in the best way possible per bullet. So we're moving students away from talking about, I did this, a task. Like for example, pick the first one, design user interfaces for missions within the game. What you have told me is, okay, you can design, you've told me what you did. But what I would like as a recruiter is to know whether what you did had any impact for the company. Because anybody can say, I designed this and did that, but what significance or what meaningful impact did you make for the company? So that's why we shift students from telling the recruiter what I've done to 3 things. What is the skill set I have? What is it that I was able to do and the tools that I used to do it? And lastly, the outcome. So we call this the CAR framework. Typically, the first word here is a verb, and a verb that showcases a skill set or competency. If I read this, I'm like, oh, okay, Nicole can design. You're also telling me the action, right? So you design user interfaces for missions. So if you can tell me a little bit more about what you did, what kind of tools you use, that would be helpful. Let's say this job had required you to have certain expertise in a tool. Then when you mention it here, that tells me something about what you're able to do. R is the last one where we often miss out, because sometimes, we do the job, but we forget about what was the reason or the outcome for doing a piece of work. So R stands for result. So there are 3 ways where you can answer or you can show the result. The first way is quantitative outcomes. Let's just make an example. Let's say, okay, so you design this interface within the game, and then let's say increase interest by 50%, something like that. Because of what you did, right, you're actually able to quantify the level of interest because of your impact, your contribution to this piece of work. That percentage gives the recruiter an understanding of the impact of your work. So versus just stating this sentence, it doesn't give me enough information and context. So the first is quantitative, second is qualitative. If you weren't talking about interest, maybe we talk about maybe the beauty, the sense of appreciation for the interface, maybe it was very beautiful. Over to you. How would you describe in a qualitative way? Increase the visual appeal of the game to encourage greater adoption or encourage greater downloads, for example. Right? So that's a qualitative outcome of your contribution. Okay, the last one is more of the rationale or the potential outcome, because quite often students would join, a company and, embark on a project, and they leave earlier before it ends, before it concludes. Instead of just leaving it as I did this and that's it, right? You would want to tell the recruiter the reason for doing that and the rationale. So it would be, I designed this, doing this with the intention to increase the game appeal, or with the rationale to improve gaming behavior or something like that. So it's more of the potential, what was the potential outcome that you were looking for. So this is the framework that we use for every bullet that we put here. We will craft our point. Instead of just tasks, now we're telling them 3 things: your skill set, what you're able to do, and your impact. So typically about which is the most important point. So even within the 3 points, right, I always tell students, if you do your reflection, you distill your experience and you want to talk about the 3 most important points, put the most important one as the first one and then followed by the second most important second one, because you want to make sure you keep the recruiter as interested as possible when they look through your resume. And especially for entry level, we try to keep to maybe about 3 points so that we make way for other points to be added in as well. Yeah, some students will be like, more points means better, but not necessarily, because it may just be repetitive or doesn't really value add when they just add more and more points. But my caveat is always that, well, if what you want to say beyond 3 points is relevant and it is able to showcase a discrete skill set that matches the job description that you're applying for, then by all means put it in. So another thing about resumes is that you must customize it. You must make sure that you study the job description, pick out the keywords and make sure that the same keywords appear in your resume. Yeah, so you would do that for the rest of your points. And again, depending on the job description, you may want to remove those that are not relevant, because a resume is meant to be a concise and impactful picture of you as an applicant. Work experience there, knowledge and skills.
Is a knowledge and skills section needed if you already elaborate on the skills that you have in the jobs section?
So typically there is a separate section that talks about your additional skills, and usually this goes to the bottom, and usually it's not like written in this way. It's just like a quick computer skills and then just this. But what I'm seeing is that you have quite a number. It's kind of like a disservice to yourself to just simplify it. If let's say the job description that you are applying to actually requires you to have this know-how, these skill sets, because of that, then I would say maybe it may have a separate category on its own. But again, I say that if the job description they're going for really requires you to be so well-versed technically. So again, it's always open for customization. You were the deputy director for this phase. Okay, so you can probably put that under maybe CCA and then show them via different tasks that you did that you have leadership skills. Because if you just put leadership and communication skills, people will be like, yeah, anybody can say that. But if you can display it or if you could demonstrate it, that would be good.
So a separate CCA section.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's good that we have a category for accomplishments, since you have a few. Okay, maybe an experiment would be, okay, if I pick brain hack now, what do you think was the competencies that you flexed? What did you do? And what was the outcome?
I learned a new technology within a short span of time during the competition and used that knowledge to do this task, classify different images using a CNN, which resulted in us placing 8th among 40 plus teams or so. That's how I would summarize it.
Yes. And can you compare what you have just told me with what's written here?
Right. Very, very different.
That's right. Yeah. So you've told me so much more impressive stuff in that statement. So maybe it could be applied here as well, where it can really highlight your skills, what you were able to do, and what was the impact or contribution. Okay, so let's talk about your volunteer experience. Basically, it's the same. So again, it's about what is relevant. Otherwise, very good, very clean. I think that's for a first look. I think that's what I would pick out.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you so much. That was very fruitful. A lot to improve.
Welcome. But it's very good already. Yeah. It's just, adding in the finishing touches.
Okay, just a few questions to end off the session. I keep hearing the word CV and resume in one line, but what's the difference between a CV and a resume?
So CVs are more really a very comprehensive documentation of all your academic achievements as well as your career-related records. It's more complete, comprehensive rather than a resume, which is concise and customized.
Another question, my resume was quite plain, black and white, which is really helpful for the AI, but I was wondering when's a good time for it to be a bit more customized, as you mentioned. Like I saw one for Spotify where someone designed the resume to look like the Spotify interface, and I thought that was very creative. Yeah, when's a good time to keep it plain and when's a good time to really be more creative?
Very good question. Not so straightforward to answer. Okay, generally going plain black and white is best, because I've had students who come to me and say, I keep sending no, but nobody comes back to call me. I look at their resume, I'm like, I know why. Because there's colors and their images. Safest is always black and white. So when are the times when you can flex a bit of creativity? I think when you are going for roles that require you to be creative, it's a role that states already that, you're required to do some maybe design work, or like maybe marketing, for example. Branding, things that require maybe a display of your ability to conceptualize or to communicate through design. Maybe those might give you that avenue to show your chops.
One last question. So besides the resume, what are some other tips or key things to take note of when applying for a job or internship?
Okay, so number one, be well prepared. Okay, so how do we well prepared? So let's talk about NUS. NUS has our NUS CFG. CFG is Center for Future Ready Graduates. It is a very, very rich website full of information, which I personally benefit from when I read about how we should present ourselves, how we should be interviewing. So if you feel lost, you don't know where to start or what kind of internships you can go for, there is a page under self-assessment where you can get to know yourself, and at least get some leads, do some tests to explore your interests, your strengths. I think that's a good starting point, because you reflect on yourself. What do people say about you that you flourish in, you're good at? Some of the tests would be able to recommend you some possible routes to take. So at least some keywords for you to start off the footing on. And of course, they've got resume and cover letter templates and lots of information on how to tackle interviews, how to tackle case assessments if you're going for consulting roles, learn soft skills for the workplace, and also discover events and opportunities. So it's very rich, full of information there, and I recommend that students explore the website. Another thing is knowing your resources, in the sense where who are the people that you can network with that could lead you to openings for jobs as well as internships, because you'd be surprised to know that a lot of people get jobs, get placements because of someone that they knew. Yeah, in fact, I can share that I got into my first, second job because of a connection. It's because the person knows you and would be able to recommend you. Networking is something that we tell students, don't be afraid of it, because your own networks could be really the closest people around, your family, your seniors, friends, and not just their friends, but maybe your friends' friends, your friends' parents, your friends' cousins, these are networks as well. And maybe people that you've gotten to know through, your own social institutions, whether you've volunteered somewhere, or maybe you have a faith-based institution, people that you know from those places, and also professors. Yeah, so know your network. There may be openings there. And I guess also the different portals, be familiar with all the different portals that you can search for opportunities. So it's not just LinkedIn, but there are also many others. If students are not aware, they also have Talent Connect. That is a place where opportunities come from employers that NUS already has a working relationship with, some of whom are really key employers with NUS. So that's a perfect place to go to look for opportunities as well. And the other one, which is more towards the end, not end meaning when you start work, but more like just before, which is interviewing skills. I think apart from the resume, interviewing skills is very important. You really need to do your research and then practice the skills. Get someone to do the mock interview with you, at least get an idea of what kind of questions you may be answering. So those are just some things. Backtracking to the resources, right? I want to talk about VMock, which is a resource that's available for all NUS students. So what is VMock? What VMock sounds very weird. Okay, so it's basically a virtual career assistant. So it's a system where, it uses artificial intelligence to assess your resume. So remember the CAR framework that we talked about? It guides you, scans your resume, and it benchmarks it against parameters that are important. Then it scans it to see how you can change certain words so that you can increase the effectiveness of your resume. And it will actually give you a score to say, okay, this resume looks good. For undergraduate students, you can upload up to 10 resumes each academic year. And then for postgraduate students, you can upload 5 resumes per year. So apart from working on the resume, VMock also has a segment that helps you practice interviewing skills. So I noticed that students who've done that, they do know like where they should sit, how far from the camera. What's brought to their awareness is where their eyes are looking at, whether they're smiling enough, whether their tone is low, high, all those things that matter, because nowadays people don't always have physical face-to-face interviews. They do have virtual ones. So we have to learn how to adapt to virtual interviews. That is an opportunity for students to practice. Do note that for different years, CFG is always thinking of ways to make sure that our students have events to go to so that they can network with the employers, they can learn about what's happening in different industries, familiarize themselves with different employers. Some key events that are happening soon, January, February, at least in this first 2-3 months, would be the NUS Career Fest for students who are looking for jobs. And then there's this other one for College of Humanities and Sciences. It's called CHS Navigator. So it's open to students in year 1. For students from year 1 to 3, there is the internship briefing coming up in January. And for years 3s and 4s, FASS as well, there will be the graduate recruitment briefing where we will prepare students for graduation and employment.
So that's the end of the session. I just really want to thank Joline and CFG once again for this opportunity. Honestly, it was such a fruitful meeting and I really felt like I learned a lot. Definitely a lot of areas to improve, and I really appreciate how Joline was so patient and helpful throughout the whole meeting. So if you want to get some advice from a career advisor like I did, I think the NUS Career Fest is a great place to do that. There are CFG career advisors specialized in various courses of study who can help you in career advisory clinics held throughout the career fair. As I mentioned just now, you can also attend the preparatory workshops leading up to the fair to help boost your career skills and meet employers from more than 20 industries in the fair. And as Joline mentioned, I think there are a wealth of resources available to NUS students. And I guess that is all for this video. I'll definitely be making the changes to my resume. Once again, I just want to thank Joline and CFG for this opportunity to collab, to learn and improve. So I guess that's all for this video. I really hope that you guys learned a thing or two as well. If you have any questions, I'm probably not the most well equipped to answer them. Feel free to reach out to NUS CFG. But if you do want to, comment down below. I'll see what I can do. And I guess that's all for this video. And I pray that you stay safe, happy, and healthy wherever you are.